This story opens with a view of a very magnificent city called San Francisco. Seen in the corner of the city, there is an alley that looks like a mini robot battle is taking place. The battle is won by Yama, with his robot named Little Yama, and he is also entitled to win the bet money. After Yama threw the next challenge, suddenly from behind the crowd a teenager volunteered with a robot he made himself. At first, this kid was laughed at and told to go home. But because he was able to pay the betting money finally, Yama was willing to fight him. This teenager named Hiro Hamada and his robot called Megabot. And the match started, but quickly Megabot was cut into pieces and little Yama won the fight again. But Hiro Hamada asked to fight again, with the excuse that this was his first fight. Initially, Yama told him to go home again, but when Hiro showed the money, Yama immediately said come on. It was in this rematch that Hiro showed his true Megabot power and won easily. Here, Yama got angry and then took Megabot from Hiro. Very lucky Tadashi came to save Hiro. Tadashi is Hiro's older brother. They also try to escape while Megabot beats Yama to escape, then catches up with the Hiro. Hiro is a very genius child. He even finished high school at the age of 13. In his attempt to escape, it turned out that a police patrol instead blocked him, until they were finally arrested and put in jail. A few moments later, they were released by Aunt Cass, who had been taking care of them. Upon arrival at home, Hiro went straight to the computer to look for other illegal robot fighters. Here his brother rebuked and tried to prevent him, but Hiro didn't care about him. Tadashi was willing to take him to the robot betting location though. But it turns out that Tadashi instead brought Hiro to the San Francisco Institute of Technology, where Tadashi went to college with the excuse of wanting to take something. Tadashi invited Hiro to enter his campus to show the lab atmosphere and introduced Hiro to his friends in the Bookworm Club. They were Gogo Tamago, a tomboyish girl, interested in machines and speed. Wasabi with her research in the form of an electric plasma laser that can cut anything. Honey Lemon, a girl who likes to mix chemicals to create new, more innovative chemical reactions. And the last one is Fred, the campus mascot with his monster outfit. Where is Fred not understanding science? He is only interested in comics and dreams of one day becoming a superhero. After getting acquainted with Tadashi, then invited Hiro into the room where he was researching. Here, Tadashi deliberately made Hiro scream and hurt his arm, which turned out to make a red box open and a personal robot nurse named Baymax came out of it, a robot that would act when someone shouted pain. Baymax then scanned Hiro and found abrasions on his arm. Tadashi also explained that this Baymax is a health companion robot, which is programmed for more than 10,000 medical procedures in a chip implanted in Baymax's chest. Different from robots in general, Baymax is made of jelly-like material which makes it comfortable when hugged. This Baymax will stop doing his treatment until the person being treated expresses his satisfaction with his service. While having fun chatting, suddenly someone interrupted their conversation. He turned out to be Professor Robert Callahan. He is the inventor of magnetic systems and robotic laws. Because of his interest in robots, Professor Callahan offers Hiro to enter the San Francisco Institute of Technology, regardless of how young he is, to become a student. The next day, Tadashi explains to Hiro that every year the San Francisco Institute holds an exhibition of students' works that impress professor candidates will be selected to become students. This made Hiro excited and wanted to take part in the exhibition, but because his idea was stuck, Tadashi then lifted Hiro upside down so he could get an idea. It was at this moment that Hiro saw Megabot and suddenly an idea occurred to him. Hiro rushed straight to the garage to work, and after struggled, finally he succeeded in making thousands of microbot units. Long story short, the day you have been waiting for has arrived. On stage, Hiro presented his work, with the control device on his head, then took out a microbot from his jacket pocket, which is very useful. This makes exhibition visitors start to come closer to the stage to watch what is being presented by Hiro.
Don't limit your imagination.
Through his work, everyone who witnessed his presentation was amazed, including Mr. Gray, who was the president of Tech Technology. After the presentation, Mr. Cray approached Hiro to see his work, and it turned out that Mr. Cray was interested, so he wanted a microbot to be in his factory. Hiro had not had time to accept Mr. Cray's offer. Professor Callahan came. Even though he was offered a very large amount of money, Hiro decided not to sell his microbot. Tadashi then asked Mr. Cray to return his sister's microbot. When after Mr. Cray left, Professor Callahan gave Hiro an envelope containing a student registration form from the San Francisco Institute of Technology when he was about to celebrate his success at the campus. Suddenly, the building alarm sounded. Tadashi and Hiro then ran towards the building. There they witnessing people scattering out, which turned out to be the exhibition building on fire. Knowing that Professor Callahan was still in the building where the fire was getting blazing, Tadashi was determined to go in to save the professor. And suddenly the building exploded when after Tadashi entered it, and Tadashi died in the incident. For that incident, Hiro became quiet and isolated himself in his room. After his brother's death here, Hiro accidentally dropped his megabot and hit his leg. Apparently this activated the Baymax robot created by his brother, who immediately asked Hiro to do maintenance. But Hiro refused and forced Baymax to shrink again. But the effort was not successful. Instead, it made Hiro fall under the bed. Under the bed, Hiro found an active microbot. At first, he felt strange because his microbot would be attracted to other microbots, while the microbot was the only one left. Out of curiosity, Baymax then scanned the microbot. Hiro, who was busy with his robot, told Baymax to find out for himself where Microbot was going. But because it was too far, Hiro finally caught up and took them both to a warehouse that had been abandoned for a long time. There Hiro found someone multiplying his microbot creations in very large numbers. When he was about to investigate, suddenly someone activated and controlled all the microbots to attack Hiro and Baymax. With great difficulty, they were finally able to escape and go to the police station to report what happened to him. The police weren't sure about reports about him being attacked by a mysterious masked figure and asked Hiro to write down his parents' phone numbers so his parents could pick them up. That's when Hiro and Baymax disappeared from the police's presence. In his room, when Baymax was put in the box to be charged, suddenly, Baymax called Tadashi's name, which made Hiro startled and woke up. Seeing his microbot, Hiro suddenly assumed that the fire that caused Tadashi's death didn't seem like a pure accident. He finally decided to catch the masked man. Here Hiro then makes a carbon fiber costume for Baymax and installs the fighter chip in his body, which he has downloaded. After a short training, they decided to go to the old warehouse, which he visited during the day. Using the microbot as a guide, Hiro and Baymax continued to look for the masked man, and without them realizing it, a car was following him. Then a shadow appeared from the sea and clearly seen the man wearing a mask carrying an object bearing the swallow bird logo. When Baymax was about to take action, suddenly, Hiro was surprised by the presence of his friends who turned out to have been following him from earlier. A masked man then appeared holding a container and threw it at them, making Hiro and his friends shocked not to play. Hiro also told his friends to go and after that, asked Baymax to catch the masked man. But what Hiro expected turned out to be not in accordance with reality. Baymax was instead thrown onto their car and they decided to run away. The masked man continued to follow them, and when the escape, suddenly Wasabi stopped his car because of a red light. Their frustration was unstoppable when Wasabi instead turned on the turn signal, which made the masked man easily know their destination. Here Gogo then took over the wheel because he was annoyed with Wasabi, who was too obedient to driving rules at such a critical moment. After being trapped from the microbot siege, they finally managed to escape but fell into the sea. And once again, the Baymax immediately helped them and pulled them up. Soaked and cold, they finally arrived at Fred's house. Hiro then showed a picture of the swallow that he had seen before to his friend and asked if anyone knew the symbol. Fred then theorized that Mr. Cry is the masked man because all this time he was the one who really wanted his microbot. But here Hiro is still not sure. Hiro then had the idea of updating his friends by making superhero costumes and their respective weapons. Here Huni made weapons in the form of balls filled with chemicals, Gogo with his disc wheels, then Wasabi with a plasma knife, and Fred with a monster costume that is elastic and can also spitting fire. Here Hiro also introduces Baymax version 2.0 with a weapon in the form of a rocket fist that can return. To make his friends more amazed, Baymax takes out his wings, which then Hiro gets on top of Baymax and orders him to fly, and they glide. Here Hiro then asks Baymax to activate his super sensor, which scans the entire city and its surroundings. Baymax then finds a match and shows an island on the other side. Hiro and his friends decided to go to the island and landed in a building location which was sealed by the government. Because they were shocked suddenly, they screamed and took out all their weapons. The funny thing was that it was a dove. They finally entered a lab that looked like it was no longer used. But due to the building's construction, the Baymax sensor didn't work properly. In a control room, Hiro opened a monitor which turned out to be a monitor containing several videos showing Mr. Cry introducing his project called Silent Pyro to a general and a few others. This video turned out to be a failed teleportation experimental project, which caused a female pilot named Abigail to die as a result of the carelessness of Mr. Cry himself, who insisted on continuing his experiment and did not notify the energy instability in his teleportation machine. As a result of the accident, the island and laboratory were closed by the government. Not long afterwards, from behind, the masked man appeared and attacked them. Hiro asked his friends to reclaim the microbot controller behind the man's mask. With great difficulty, they finally succeeded after Hiro threw his enemy and made his mask fall. Hiro immediately took it, and apparently the person behind the mask was Professor Callahan. This professor survived the fire incident after Hiro's microbot was stolen by him. Knowing Tadashi died in vain, Hiro was angry and ordered Baymax to kill Professor Callahan. Then Hiro opened Baymax's access port, then took the maintenance chip and threw it, instantly making Baymax a killing machine eyeing Professor Callahan. Here, the hero's friends immediately prevented Baymax, but failed many times. In the end, Huni inserted the Baymax maintenance chip and made it back to normal. Here Professor Callahan immediately took the mask that slipped from Hiro's hand and ran away with the microbot he controlled. Hiro was angry and disappointed with his friends who prevented Baymax from catching Professor Callahan. He and Baymax immediately went home to repair the damaged Baymax scanner sensor. After repairing Baymax's scanner, Hiro tried to open his nurse chip again to be replaced with a fighter chip, but was blocked by Baymax. Baymax tried calms Hiro by showing a video about Tadashi's test on Baymax, which fails many times, and keeps trying until it finally succeeds. Seeing Tadashi's efforts in creating Baymax made Hiro realize that killing Professor Callahan was not really what Tadashi asked for. Here, Hiro's friends finally came and promised Hiro to help catch Professor Callahan in the right way. Then Huni showed again the video that had not been finished watching them in the laboratory earlier. In the video, they finally found out that the pilot who was trapped as a victim of the failed teleportation was the son of Professor Callahan. They concluded that Professor Callahan wanted revenge on Mr. Cry for the death of his daughter. One sunny morning in a building, Mr. Cry was seen making a speech at the opening of his factory. But not long ago, thousands of microbots appeared from the top of the building, which made the guests present disperse to flee. Professor Callahan, who controlled the microbots, then caught Mr. Cry and also the machine, teleport it and bring it up to the top of the building to unite it so the machine activates. Slowly, objects around him began to be sucked into the portal. This was done by Professor Callahan as a form of revenge, in the same way as his son, who was sucked into the portal. Hiro and his friends finally came and tried to prevent the professor from going any further. Because of his burning hatred for losing his daughter, the professor ignored Hiro and immediately attacked them. After going through a tiring battle, Hiro found a way to beat the professor by letting all the microbots get sucked into the portal. Honi finally threw his chemical ball and Fred spit fire, causing a lot of smoke and limited the professor's vision. This made the professor not realize that Hiro's friends were destroying the microbots from below so that everyone could be sucked into the portal. Baymax then took the professor's mask and destroyed it so that all the microbots could no longer be controlled. The teleportation machine fell and hit the ground but was still active and continued to suck up objects around it. Here, Hiro then asked Mr. Cry how to stop the machine. But the machine really couldn't be stopped because the magnetic field barrier had been broken. Here, Baymax then headed towards the portal and detected signs of life from Abigail, the daughter of the Professor Callahan. Hiro decided to enter the portal with Baymax to save Abigail. Sure enough, it turned out that Abigail was in it and seemed to be fast asleep. While they were trying to get out, Baymax tried to push Hiro to get out safely. And sadly here, Baymax asked the hero to say a word of satisfaction for his service. But Hiro refused this, because by saying those words Baymax would be inactive and stay in the portal forever. Hiro did not want to lose Baymax considering that time was getting narrower. Finally, with deep sadness, Hiro hugged Baymax and said words of satisfaction for his service. Along with the rocket fist was fired and Baymax was sent flying deeper while Hiro, who was holding the capsule, shot out of the portal. A few moments later, the portal exploded while Hiro safely landed with Abigail, but Baymax was not there. Then the ambulance came to provide care to Abigail, who had regained consciousness, and took her to the hospital, while the professor was detained by the police to be held accountable for his actions. Because of their heroic actions, Hiro and his friends became trending in the news. Long story short, one afternoon in Tadashi's workroom, Hiro took Baymax's rocket fist and saw something in it. Apparently it was Baymax's nurse's chip, which contained all of Baymax's personality that had been Tadashi. With this maintenance chip, Hiro revived Baymax and finally Baymax became active and greeted Hiro again. And armed with superhero costumes, finally Hiro, Baymax and his friends were able to protect people in the hope of fulfilling Tadashi's wish to help people. The story ends.